Hello, dear Shivkumar Belavadi. It's a great honor for all of us to have this opportunity to be in conversation with you and discover the beauty of your days and your works so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. Indeed, it is so much of a pleasure for me as well. You can call me Shiva. It'll be easier for both of us. And I am honored to be there engaging with you in one sense, honored to be continuing the tradition of prenatal, perinatal work, which many people in the world today are doing. And what I would endeavor, I will try to bring to this conversation is to bring a perspective of what is the kind of work we do, what is the kind of engagements we have at various levels, be it when the parents are trying to conceive, when children are uh, have been conceived, when the child has been conceived and is in the womb, and subsequently as well. We deal with all the ranges, including right up to adulthood as a part of our system and part of our practices. But I have generally worked largely with the pre-perinatal areas. We are a big team, we are a big family in India who's doing all of this. And as I start, I would also like to express my gratitude to my mentor, my guru, as we call in India, my guru Mirama, and I invoke her grace, I invoke her blessings as we start, and I look forward to engaging with you and taking this forward in the next few minutes. Thank you.
Excellent. What a beautiful way to start talking about our work by offering gratitude and blessings to those who have supported us and who have carried us because of their wisdom and because of their good intentions. Thank you for that, Shiva. So, let's start right from the beginning. So where were you conceived, Shiva, and what time?
I'm sorry, I couldn't get the question clearly. What was the?
Where, where, what was the space, place that you were conceived, and what time?
Oh, when I was conceived, that would have been a long time back. That must have been at least about, I'm 61, and so it should be at least about 62 and a half years when I was conceived. I was born in a traditional South Indian family. Okay. My traditional South Indian family, but when I say traditional, it is because of the family being completely engaged in the way of life of Hindus or Sanatanis, as I would say. Although by profession, my father was a radar engineer, he was a scientist, but he, right from those days, was a very devout person. So he kept his profession on one side and he kept his uh, personal practices, personal orientations very different from his official. In fact, he was in the Ministry of Defense. So you can imagine a scientist in the Ministry of Defense who was actually doing all of this. My mother was a very traditional housewife working to take care of the family, just that. But it was a fairly large family. In the days when I was born or when I was conceived, uh, my conception took place in with a long gap. My elder sister is 8 years older than I am. Um, After having had my elder sister as a daughter for 8 years, my father had gone to Switzerland. He was there in Switzerland for about a year. He had spent time on some projects there, and then he was coming back to India. And in those days, he was on a ship. This was 1962. He came back on a ship, and the ship was a long journey. So he had gone with his friends and colleagues, and uh, in fact, there was a joke which used to go around from the teammates to say that who's going to become a father as soon as we get back to India? Okay, who's going to be the first to become a father again? So that was the joke, and my father arrived, and he arrived back in India, and I recall this from both my parents and other family members telling me these stories that I was conceived very soon thereafter, and my father and mother had prayed for me as a child to arrive in their midst, and that had happened. And as would be the custom in a joint family, in those days it was father, mother, parents, brothers, everybody staying together in the same house. So that was the environment in which I was conceived, in our own house in Bangalore, India. And I I do not know for how long I would have been in Bangalore, because those dates are not known to me. My mother would have gone to her mother's place, which is my maternal grandmother's place, for the final delivery. At the time of delivery, to deliver the child, she would have gone there. So there are many things which have happened in between, and I would definitely like to mention a couple of things which I don't know whether I should mention it now, which have kind of been the prenatal imprints which I have carried, or should I speak about it later?
Well, you are welcome to choose when. Before you go to these details, could you help us create an image of the cultural aspects of the years 1960, 50s, 60s in Bangalore, India?
Sure. See, India was a fairly young country in that sense, because we got independence from the British in 1947. So, you had the Second World War right up to 1945, and then thereafter, there were severe restrictions on Indians. We didn't have the freedom, we didn't have the liberty to do many things, and politically, we were subjugated, or we lived under the British control. And there was severe shortage all over from 1948 onwards. So that was an era of scarcity, and the environment was very politically charged, with a lot of people having nationalistic feelings. But the ground reality was that people didn't have jobs, there was no food, things were expensive, and it was a very difficult time for India to go through. In fact, in the year 1962, there was a war between India and China, and it was a bad war for India. We lost many people, and we lost a lot of territory in that sense. So that was also part of the environment in which India was, per se. Now, coming down to the reality of what was in India, India is a very big country. I'm sure you're all aware of it, and very diverse. There are more than 25 official languages in India. There are more than 10,000 spoken dialects. So official language is 25, spoken dialects are more than 10,000. And then you have people who are very different in different states. So uh, you have physicality which is different, like you have the hills in the north, you have the sea to the south, you have a desert in the west, uh, you have a lot of virgin land which is there in the east. So India is very, very diverse. There's nothing like India as one common thing, other than the spirituality or the cultural, uh, the essence of culture which India brings, which is in the olden days, it used to be called Bharata. Bharata, India, what united India was always civilizationally the culture, the essence of spirituality is what brought everybody together. Because otherwise, if you look at the what people eat, the way they dress, the way they talk, what occupations they do, it'll look like nothing looks like the other. So a state in north will be very different from the state in south, and a state in south will be very different from the next state in the south itself. And that will come down to, in a, for example, in Karnataka, you will have uh, probably 20,000 types of cuisine. Every 100 kilometers, which is roughly about 60 miles, you will have the food changing. You will have so many things which are different in that place. So when you understand that India is culturally diverse, ethnically diverse in that sense, but there is one broad connecting thing which is called the spirit of Bharata, largely through uh, the prism or the mechanism of what you may call as a religious mooring, but that is a very different. I can explain that in a very different sense. It's called a religion probably by the Westerners, but for Indians, it's called Sanatana. What is Sanatana? What is uh, a religion? Religion is typically, if I can equate or try to draw a parallel between, say, a Christianity or an Islam or the Jewish religion, be it all of them have a particular founder. There is a book associated. There is a set of things, do's, don'ts, etc., which are prescribed. And there's a following of a particular type, which happens amongst all the people who are there by and large. Okay, I know that there are differences. Unlike that, in Sanatana, in Hinduism, as most people call it, there is no single God, there is no single practice, there is no single condition that you should do this or you should not do this. Everything is completely open. So a person who believes in God is a Hindu. A person who believes in a different God is also a Hindu. A person who does not believe in God is also a Hindu. Now, this is the diversity which comes through. And it's Sanatana because amongst all the living religions of the world, there have been many civilizations which have come and gone, be it the Greco-Roman, be it the Mayan, Incan, Mesopotamian. All of the civilizations are gone in one sense, but this civilization has survived for many millennia, for
Mm.
many millennia. So it is that reality of what Sanatana is. So to come back to the story, I was born in a Sanatana family in the south of India. And in a Sanatana family, typically, the cultural aspects of doing a morning prayer, doing set of things which you need to do as offerings to God, these are religious practices which are part of it. But it's the same setting which will tell you, you can be as liberal as you want. There are no definitive lines. And my parents, my family was such that they would do most of the things which are typically required to be done by a Sanatani, which is generally understood as a Hindu practice. They lived that life. At the same time, India was a very aspiring country. So we had got independence newly. So there was a lot of focus on trying to make, trying to build India, trying to grow India. So people were getting educated. Like my father was a radar engineer. His father was a doctor. Okay. And my grandfather from my mother's side was a lawyer. So he was practicing in the courts. So there were different things which used to happen from the perspective of modernity, yet the cultural, the spiritual antiquity was also there. So there was modernity combined with ancient traditions, and the continuity of spirit, from spirituality, from culture, was there over thousands of years, if not hundreds of years. So this is the large cultural moorings which you would have found around the time which was 50s, 60s, and right up to 70s. Now India is proclaimed to be the a very important country in information technology and computers and software and coding and many other fields. But in those days, it was not. We were still called a developing country, aspiring for food, aspiring for jobs, aspiring for. So, from an era of scarcity and shortage, today we are a very, very different nation. We are we're possibly number five in the GDPs of the world. We are the fifth largest nation of the in the world today. But that's been a very big transition. But what it was in the 60s was a very different story. A young India from the political point of view, aspiring to become self-sufficient, poor otherwise. It was typically very poor country in those days, and shortages, scarcity, and threats of war and this and that. Too many things happening around that time. That was the general environment in which things were. But culturally, people were very, very united. Culturally, people were very, very integrated because of the spiritual dimensions. But yet, in aspects of day-to-day life, as I mentioned earlier, be it food, clothing, language, speech, there was so much of difference between them. So it was a contradiction of sorts. Once one side you say that it's all culturally linked, and yet you say that there are different languages and different foods, etc., etc. Both of them are true. That is what India is essentially. India, South India included, has always been like that, and this was the environment in which I was born.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Shiva. And I'm wondering, in what ways do you feel this cultural, political, transitional, full of diversity and aspiration, brings in two eras, the before and the one starting at that time? How was this setting perfect for you to start your own life?
That's a very interesting question. Very interesting question. Now, as I mentioned briefly, my father had gone abroad. Like, he's a very, very deep person. By the way, he's alive even today. He's 99 years old, and he's become a monk. He became a monk about 10 years ago. More than 10 years ago, he became a monk, and he's still active, physically active. He travels even now. He does his own things. He washes his own clothes. He does everything on his own still today. Touch wood, blessings of God.
Excellent.
So my father and my mother, both of them came from traditional families. Aspirationally, my father had gone abroad and he wanted to bring the nice things of life for people, like typically gadgets and uh, the new ways of appreciating technology. All of that was part of it. So he had come back with some ideas which were new and modern, and he was born traditional family. The rest of the family have never gone abroad. In fact, my father was the first person from the family who had gone abroad. He had come back, and as a scientist, he had continued with his profession. My mother was a supporting housewife, very devout, very, very loving, caring. I had an elder sister who was already there, but she was 7 to 8 years older than me by the time I was conceived. Now, in those days, the norm very much was to have 2 or 3 children. 3 children was kind of accepted as the minimum a family needs to have. So there was no surprise in my parents wanting another child. But this kind of a long gap of 8 years is not common. It was not very common at all, because typically you'll have one child and within 2 to 3 years you will have another child. That used to be quite the norm. But here in my case, in those days, it was a very long gap. Now, while that was there, aspirationally, after my father had come back, uh, there was this intense desire from the entire family that I should be born, which included my father, mother, my grandparents from my mother's side, grandparents from my father's side. Everybody put together had wanted a child. And because they had already had a daughter, they were imagining, if we have a son also, it's going to be nice for us. Okay, they were, and after that, I still have a younger sister. Okay, so there was one more sister after I was born. So the point being that because they'd already had a daughter, they wanted a son at this time. So they craved for a son. And as I mentioned earlier, after my father came back from Switzerland, in a very short span of time, I don't remember when exactly he came back, I was conceived. Now, this environment was such that while the larger things which were happening in society was also true, our family was fairly steady, strong, steadfast on traditions and religion and practices. Okay, so all of them were in in that frame of mind, and having what having the desire for a young male child, I came into the family as a conception which was very much desired, wanted by everybody, both from my parents, my elder sister, my grandparents, and my aunts and uncles who were also living in the same house. Everybody cherished and wanted a child. So I was conceived in those times, uh, which was a very nice way of coming to this world, I guess. If while there could have been troubles politically and geographically, etc., etc., still Indians are very resilient, flexible people. We manage with things, we do take things in our stride, and this is what was typically of this family as well. So we manage with things. There were about 16, 17 people living in that single house, and everybody adjusted, everybody gave things to each other, made space for each other, and everybody used to contribute to work. So this was typically the environment in which the family lived. My grandfather, my father's father, that is, was a doctor and a very well known doctor. He had retired, so he was there in the house, and he was known to be the only doctor who was there for the entire neighborhood. So a lot of neighbors used to come to our house, either for medical attention or even otherwise. In the good old days, like, it was people mingling. There was people used to walk into each other's houses and live together. So the sense of community was also very intense. So a lot of things came about as a confluence. I don't know whether you heard this term confluence, but this is a very important term for me and our work here, that things don't happen in a singular way, nor do things happen by chance or by coincidence. Many things have to come together to create a particular type of event or an impact. That is what we mean by confluence. So, this confluence was a certainty. Huge things confluenced: the desire for a child, the family environment, the societal moorings, the larger picture of a developing country like India. Everything came together, and I was conceived in this family. Let me take this story further, because I think it's an important part of my prenatal life, so to say. This is something which I heard much later on in my life. I had not known about this. The story goes like this: my father having come back from Switzerland and my mother and father having conceived me, things were going on in the normal family way, with all the ups and downs, difficulties and the pleasures and the happiness and everything put together. Life was going on. At one point of time, there were serious financial difficulties in the family at that time. Okay, now that kind of was dominating the discussion and the family environment for a short period of time. Now, when that environment was there, apparently there was an argument between my father and my mother. And it was a fairly serious disagreement about, I don't know what, but it was probably something to do with the situation in which they were. So I think this was from what has been told to me by my own father, and he also does not remember the full dates, by my father and an aunt and my elder sister. They are the people who have narrated the story to me, because my sister was already 8 years old, 7 years old by then. So she still has memories of this. And my aunts and others who were there at home, they narrated this to me to say that my father kind of said that I'm done. I can't take this tension anymore. And he walks out of the house. Now he walks out of the house, not to say that he's gone forever, but that just showing his anger, he just walks out of the house. Here's my mother. She's still a young girl. I think she must have been what? She must have been about 23, 24 when I was conceived, or less than that, probably that. I think she was, yeah, probably just about that. And she, in a fit of anger, she picked up what used to be called as rat poison. A rat is a
Yes.
pet, right? So they used to use these poisons to keep in certain places so that the rat will taste it and you will then throw it out, right? So my mother picked up this entire bottle and she drank it. And this was when I was there in the womb, and this was in the second trimester, must have been 5th or 6th month of pregnancy. Now, this I now realize was a very significant event in the course of my life, because it has done many things to me in my prenatal life. But at that time, what transpired was my father came back home. My grandfather, being a doctor, realized what had happened. He took my mother to the hospital. They did the flushing of the stomach and things like that. And she was okay in a few days' time, and they came back home. So this was one event which seems to have happened when I was still in the womb. So you have a child who's otherwise cherished, wanted. There's an argument between the mother and the father in the course of pregnancy on a particular day. And on that day, I get a dose of things which I could not have wanted while I was there in the womb. This happens. And then things are normal again, because it was a fit of anger, fit of emotion from both sides, from my father and mother and the rest of the family. And subsequently, I was born a few months later. The impacts of which, or the traces of which, I still carry with me, I know for sure. And probably that has been one of the guiding factors for me to take to prenatal, perinatal education in its own way. The energy must have worked in such a way that I somehow land up in this field, and I begin to work with all of you to take the work of prenatal, perinatal education further into the world.
That is strong, Shiva. So it is cherished, the template, cherished, and then ways for death. Nothing really related to you, but to whatever issues the environment carried, and then back to normal. So you have seen it impact your life for long. And can we go back to that moment which turned your attention to prenatal sciences or prenatal psychology, knowing or being in contact in some way with this prenatal natal experience of yours. When was that? How old were you when you realized there is something from this prenatal past that is good to be investigated, explored?
Again, going back down the memory lane, so to say, uh, I was a fairly mischievous child as a child. I was very, very naughty. I was very bright. I was very engaged with many things which I used to do both as a child. And at some point of time, my father, who was in government work, as I mentioned to you, he was transferred from Bangalore, which is in south of India, to Delhi, which was the capital of India. So I moved with my father. So some aspects of what the family was, especially my father and mother, had very deep imprints on me in terms of their way of life, their thinking, their spiritual upbringing, all of that. Yet, where life led me thereafter was into the world of industry, commerce, and the world, the modern world as we know it. So I began work fairly early in my life, and I worked with the government, with a government company for a while, and thereafter I moved into the what we call as the multinational or transnational companies and private companies, and I made a career which was very successful. Now, I was a very successful insurance professional, recognized, holding senior positions in different companies, so different uh, kind of portfolios. Uh, Insurance wise, it's life insurance, health insurance, accident insurance, etc., etc., different profiles. But fundamentally, in the financial sector, I became a very well known insurance professional. And I headed a few companies, big names of the world, especially in America. People will know of these companies, whether it was AIG or whether it was United Health or whether it was MetLife as a company. These are companies I work for, and in Europe, I work for a few European companies, Swiss reinsurance company, Munich reinsurance company. So I work for different types of companies, and I had a very successful career. Now, if you look at my external life at that time, I was a busy corporate professional. I was doing all the planning and accounts and works and uh, helping companies grow, taking care of employees, doing planning, organizing, all of the things which a management professional does. Yet, the core of me was always very different. I knew that right from the beginning. For instance, very early in my life, after I had started working, I used to take breaks. And for instance, I've gone on trips to Himalayas alone. I've taken trips to different places alone. I've spent times in different places with very interesting people, both from a spiritual perspective and a non spiritual perspective. All these things used to happen. But the last probably about 15 years of my working life was a very, very, open corporate professional in the world of insurance. So money, everything came my way, and I had a lot of it. So it would look as if there was no connection with my parents, with their lifestyle, with what they used to do. I used to play golf, for instance. That's not done. Uh, I used to I used to take part in theater, do dramas, act as a professional on stage, do background work as a background professional in theater. So I used to do a lot of things. So, a very successful professional who has done so many things, but the core of him is driving him towards something else. So, I thought I'm going to stop working when I'm about 45. I finally made it by 50. So at the age of 50, I told my employers then, a big multinational US company, that I'm done with official working. I want to go back to Bangalore. I had many reasons. My father had announced that he's going to become a monk. My mother had passed on. She had died a couple of years before, and I had my sons who were coming of age. So I just wanted to come to Bangalore, and I don't know why I was coming back to Bangalore. I don't know what I was going to do in Bangalore. I was working otherwise in Bombay and in Delhi. Large parts of my life were in the commercial capital of India called Mumbai today, Bombay as it's fairly well known. And most of my official insurance life was also in Bombay. So when I told my company, they said that, why are you going to do this? Do you have a job there? Do you know how you're going to live? I said, no, I just don't want to work anymore. I know I need to get back. So I came back to Bangalore with an open mind, not knowing what I'm going to do. And when you're 50, approaching beyond 45, things change. Your perspective of life in terms of security and wanting to take care of pensions and family and healthcare and all of that is a very different perspective. But I said, I've had enough. I'm not going to look at that as the primary focus of my life. I have another calling. I don't know what it is. I don't know how life is going to lead me on from here. I just need to move back. So I moved back to Bangalore. And this is where life changed. Life changed in so many ways. For instance, my father, he he became what we call as a sannyasi. The easiest translation is a monk. So he became a monk. So the entire family went, and we participated in the rites of passage when he took to monkhood. At the same time, a very important thing happened in the course of my life at that time. I came across my guru, my mentor, Virama. Mira, Mira is the name aspect, and Ma is the mother. So Ma Mira or Mother Mira is the association which you can say. But she's very well known, and she very well known in our circles. She's actually a very shy person. She doesn't come on camera. She doesn't, uh, engage publicly with many people. But for the Barbara Decker, for instance, has met her. Sandra Bardsley has met her. Many people have met her. So that's another part of uh, who she is. And it was a chance meeting because my younger sister met with Mirama on some work related to school children. My younger sister invited Mirama to her house and also called me saying that there's this person coming. Would you like to meet up with her? So we just met for no reason because I was an unemployed person then. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. So I had all the free time in the world. So I went and met up with Mirama, and it was magic from then on. My life changed in terms of getting back into the reality of all my fundamental questions in terms of what's life. Why are things organized this way? What am I here for? What am I doing? What should I do? Because recall, I had a very strong background in my early childhood because my parents were very devout. So learning the Vedas, learning pujas, learning practices in terms of religious practices, spiritual practices were all part of me. And at some point of time, I'd kind of put them on a back burner for the world. But because I had moved on in the corporate world, they thought that I'm a corporate professional, not having time for spiritual practices. But inside of me was always that. And then I meet Mirama, and a lot of things started happening from then on. So one meeting led to another meeting, led to another. Some 3, 4 meetings happened. And then we requested Mirama to give us a longer session. That is, my sister, I, the family members, and a few outsiders requested her to give a complete picture, a holistic picture of what's spirituality and what's life. So she did, I think it was a 5-day session, a 5-day session which brought us onto the same platform in a very momentous way. Let me tell you why. Spirituality can mean anything to any person. Spiritual way of life can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. Everybody will have a thought, everybody will have a way of life. And as I told you, in Sanatana or Hindu religion, there are no full stops. You can't say, oh, you have to do this only. You can do anything else also. Even that is accepted. So from that perspective, while the others who were participating in this workshop, for them, it would have been a new learning, or something which was fresh, something which they did not know. For me, in many ways, it was a relearning of what I already knew. In fact, to use that English phrase, it articulated or gave a voice to what I had from within me. So it started off there, and apart from the larger learnings of spiritual concepts and way of life and what to do and how things work, systematically she's led me on. And in fact, I give all credit to her to say that you should be doing prenatal, perinatal work. And it was pure coincidence, the way the world sees coincidence, but from my perspective, confluence. The last official job I did when I was there in United Healthcare was design a pregnancy care program for people in the corporate world. So it was called a Happy Pregnancy Program in those days. And that subsequently, of course, became commercially very successful. But by then I was out of the company. I was out of the corporate world itself. I was here. And my guru, Mirama, and the way life was, led me every step of the way thereafter. So if at all, I have no hesitation in saying that who I am is a product of what this great civilization, India, Bharata is. And living in that Bharata, living in this Sanatana, living in this Hindu fold, so to say. I'm using Hindu in a very, very generic, because Sanatana is much larger than religion. It's not just a religion, it's a way of life itself. And in that, to find a family like mine, and within that to find my personal guru as a person like this, and to get guidance in life, it's a real blessing. It's a blessing. And this is what has led me on to prenatal, perinatal work. From then on, there's been no stopping. In so many ways, she motivated me to take part in programs of APA then. And while the core for us was always Sanatana, Hindu, and what is there in the essence. I'm sure you must have heard of it, one context or the other. All of Bharata or all of Indian civilization, knowledge is the focus. And the knowledge has been derived, and the same knowledge has survived for hundreds and thousands of years. So the people who got this knowledge in the first instance was not one person, but a set of different people in different places over different times periods, who all got the same source which has revealed to them. It's not any other knowledge, but it's called revealed knowledge because it is something which just comes into their life as awareness. It's not something which they go in search of, and of course they could have done many other things, but that, you might have heard the term Vedas, you might have heard the term Upanishads. These are all ancient Indian scriptures, some of them in the written text form now, but much of it was in the oral tradition. So many scriptures like this, the forefathers of all of this was this great set of people called rishis, Rishi, a rishi, who, you can, a very loose translation again, is a sage. but they're much beyond that. They were actually, uh, you know, scientists in a sense. There were people who got revelations in one sense. There were people who spread the right kind of energy for the world to progress over time in many ways. So they're a living entity even now. Energetically, they're all very much present with us. This is our knowledge. This is our belief. So the entire tradition of Bharata has been based on knowledge. So what Mirama, me as Shivkumar, today, of course, I'm fondly called Babaji by the entire family here. So, spiritual family. So, what I was, where I came from, blended so brilliantly with what Mirama was, what the rishis of Bharata had said, what this religion offered, and the time space confluence for me to take to prenatal perinatal education. It all happened like a well choreographed dance, a sequence which just fell in place. And after that, there's been no stopping. So as a part of my learning, she insisted that first I get the perspective from what Bharata, Indian scriptures offer. And then she said that, for today's world, it is important you get it from the modern perspective of what prenatal perinatal education is. And there are amazing similarities. In fact, what has been said here is what is getting revealed through course of science and medical practice and many other places where knowledge is also coming up from the Western perspective. So it's a fusion, it's a blend of both, which is creating the mechanism of prenatal possibilities for us today in the world today. Does that answer your question?
Excellent. And I can't help but telling myself what a repetition, because when you were 4 or 5 months in gestation, your dad said, I'm done. I go out. I am done. And when you were 45 to 50, you said, I am done. I step out of this, and out of this was the old paradigm, and how beautifully this bridging or fusion of the previous and the before and the after in the now is coming together. Beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. And blessings to Mirama, acting as a reminder for for you. Excellent. So that was the beginning. What happened to them? I mean, how did you see yourself after working on the Holy Scriptures, Indian Scriptures, the Vedas, and the other teachings of the rishis, etc. How, and then blending all this with science and all your professional expertise you brought to this. How did you develop it? What was the next big step towards or along the development and maturity path in terms of prenatal understandings?
Thank you. Let me take you through that. See, what happened was after I met Mirama, uh, the two of us, and of course a few others who were there, we joined together and we said that we need to spread this knowledge and we need to take this further because it's too important for it not to be done. And this probably is the purpose of our life. And not probably, but certainly is the message of our lives. So while that became the dominant thought amongst this group which was meeting with Mirama and me, we said that let's create a structure, let's create a formal organization and see what we can do to take this further. Now that is when we seeded some organizations. In fact, even today, the first of the organizations we created was a trust. I'm not sure whether you have the concept of trust in the Western, but it's there in many ways across the world. So we created a trust which went after our spiritual lineage. Our spiritual lineage goes by the name of Shiva Netra. Okay, Shiva Netra is the name of our spiritual lineage. There are many spiritual lineages in India, many of them. Shiva Netra was one of them, and it's been in existence for many millennia again. Okay, so there's a lineage of gurus who come, and from that perspective, we decided to name the organization which we are creating as Shivanetra Trust. Now, Shivanetra Trust, and of course, we seeded a few other organizations. Now, the focus was to build a set of people, build a set of knowledge backgrounds, create a set of people who can take this knowledge, and not just knowledge, but work with the practices as well. India is a very diverse land. You have people who are focused only on knowledge. There are very few people who have taken that knowledge and practice and put that together. So that became our focus. So the knowledge and practice, putting it together, was how we started, and we still continue in many ways with the same spirit. So what knowledge of prenatal, perinatal sciences, which is largely called Garbha Vijnana. Garbha is the womb. Vijnana, loosely translated again, is the science of the womb, or the knowledge of the womb. And womb is not just the physicality of the uterus for us. Womb is the energetic space, the space where energy, creative energy, is found. So starting from there, in the first few days, it was very intense classes and sessions to get like-minded people to understand what was happening. Why this, and what's the meaning of this, and how do we move further, etc. All of that happened. And then we said that beyond the knowledge, can we begin the application? Because the rishis, again, have not just given us the knowledge, they've given us the tools and the techniques to work with this. So the tools and techniques, which again, there's a good and a bad connotation to that, because when you use the term technique and tools, these are things which can help you in the practice. So in many ways, large parts of Indian practice were put down by many people, many Indians themselves. The British also put it down because they called it black magic. They called it tantra. Tantra also is a very abused term emerging from Hinduism. They think it's all about sex. It's got nothing to do with sex. Tantra means technique, right? So techniques of working with the human body, techniques of working with props which can get created. So we have created knowledge platforms. We have created people who can work with that. We have created tools. We have created techniques. We have created props, all of which bring the wealth and the depth of Indian knowledge, which is related to Garbha Vijnana, prenatal, perinatal, and upbringing of a life, into a workable format. Now, this is where I said my engagement with APA, with many other organizations in Brazil, in parts of Europe, all of this helped in getting, what's the perspective in UNO, for instance, or WHO, what are they doing about it, or what's the economics of this, as that famous James Heckner's equation told us. So all of these, in terms of getting a modern perspective to it and putting it together and continuously evolving. Okay, it's not a one day or a one time story, and it has got evolved and evolved and evolved and evolved. So today, on an active basis, we have more than about 300 people working full time with us, one way or the other, across the globe. We have uh, many props in terms of books, in terms of instruments, or what you see behind me. For example, these are called yantras and mandalas. Okay, these are very powerful energy mechanisms for you. Tools, very profound tools, very powerful tools. So we've created many of these. These are many come through the lineage of Shivanetra for us. Many from our gurus, many from Mirama, many which I have also contributed to. A lot of things, great grand fusion has taken place, and this knowledge is getting disseminated to the world. The set of practices are getting disseminated to the world. So we've had more than 5,000 children being born from our stables. So where the parents have gone through the process, the children have been from the womb stage associated with us, and some of them are today teenagers. Some of them are, you know, uh, graduates and working in different places. So we've seen the entire transition of people coming together at the founding stage, where we started it as a new movement, so to say, new in one sense, but it was always ancient wisdom of Bharata. The ancient wisdom plus a fusion of blending it with modern sciences, creating the knowledge systems, creating the basis for action, creating the tools, techniques, books, platforms, and equipping people to take this forward. So we have physical centers in some places in India and a couple of places abroad. We have online mechanisms which deliver the same things. We hold sessions, classes. A lot of things are done online, and it's a continuous exercise for us. So life goes on. So newer and newer things keep coming, new things keep happening, and a lot of things have now come to a stage wherein the first set of people who associated with us brought their children also. I was much older, but they were much younger, but they brought their children into this learning. Many of those children today are not only profound youngsters who've got holistic knowledge because they do what is required for the world in terms of academics and studies and that, but at the core they've taken this ancient Bharata wisdom, blended it together and lived that life. They have now come to a position when they are managing things for us. They're running our institutions. They're actually doing everything by themselves in many ways. In fact, in a few days' time, there's a huge gathering of educationists which is going to happen in Malaysia, and one of our prodigies, so to say, this child who's now about 20 years old, she is going to go. She's been invited to go there and present the scheme of working with props of board games and the tools which we have created, and how does that work in the course of education. So she's going to be delivering a talk there. Now it's a very proud moment for all of us, she being invited there. Like that, many youngsters, many of them have now come of age. They're 16, 18, 20 today, and they are into active work. They're also doing, their parents are also there. And of course, the family has spread, and a whole lot of us have taken this together. So, broadly, in the name of the Shivanetra Parampara, things go on. And the other organizations which have come about now, different names. Guru Kulam is a term which can be loosely translated as an institution of learning under a guru. So, we have an institution called Leela Gurukulam. There's another entity which works on board games, and how board games are very powerful as a mechanism at all stages of life, including prenatal, perinatal stages, where the parents can engage in board games. We have from the stables of India through the Itihasas, Puranas, Vedas, Smritis, all of this, everything is a kind of a brilliant confluence which has come together. So work today is happening. A lot happens, and we are open, and we keep evolving, and we keep doing more and more things.
Excellent. An excellent reactivation of what you bring right from your early beginnings. The old British regime and all this, which was in the past. Now, the ancient wisdom is now the player, and then the modernity after the Second World War, for example, and what your father also was involved in, modernity, bringing good things to the people. So you also see, or I, better say, I see this reactivation of ancient wisdom and modernity so that people receive something which is beneficial and takes them to the next level. And for you, all of this experience until mid 40s, 50, all of this reactivated again so that it can serve the new life mission. Excellent. Thank you for that.
Indeed. Thank you so much.
Now, since you have come to a maturity, of course, you still develop, and there are at least half a century for you to continue developing, at least, following in your grandfather's and father's steps. Now, what are the most important learnings or lessons that you have gained out of this dedicated work, and which might support other nationalities, other ethnic groups, other humans, improve the beginnings or the continuity of their lives? Let's say five important learnings.
See, the most profound of learnings is the fact that there is nothing which is random or chance event in the world. Birth, similarly, cannot be a chance event. So that the entire universe works together to cause a new life to come is the most important lesson that has got reiterated into me. So it is not because two people sleep together that somebody gets pregnant. You get pregnant when a new soul has to be born again. Now, this is where the Bharatiya or the Sanatana system kicks in. Okay, it's very profound. If I may take a moment, I will just, in the next couple of minutes, give you a very short briefing of that.
Please, thank you.
In Bharata, in Sanatana, there are some fundamental concepts which are very, very important. As I mentioned, there is no single God for us. The ascription to God is that it is an energetic format and the entire universe is one singular energy. But the same energy changes form, changes presentation, manifests differently in time and space. Now, when was this said? This was said thousands of years ago. Thousands of years ago, through the sayings of the rishis or the revelations the rishis got. Now, this was what fascinated many quantum scientists of the world as well. So, be it Niels Bohr, be it a whole lot of people were kind of wonderstruck about how is it that we have missed this knowledge. So, this fundamental unity of the universal energy, but the multiplicity and variations in presentation. How does this work together was a knowledge body which was available, always available, and continues to be available for the world. So, this discovery that it's still available for the world is something that the world should know. And in its own way, every part of the world, be it physicists, be it chemists, be it pre perinatal workers, everyone is beginning to understand that there's already a body of knowledge which is there from the stables of Bharata, from India. That is one of the biggest learnings which anybody, I would be proud to make a presentation of to anybody, to say that, this is what we got. Second is the fact that, all of life is not in terms of a standard set of things that you're born as a child, then you get weaned off at a certain point of time, then you're sent to school, then you go to high school, university, then you take up a job, and then the course of life runs. Is that what life is? Or is there a deeper understanding to the same things which are happening in the course of my life? It's not a mechanical process. It's not driven by motivations of money or desires, or there is a purpose to life. There is a purpose to life. Every life has a purpose. Respecting life from that perspective, we need to create the arrivals to come into the world. Every conception, every childbirth is a momentous occasion for the continuity of the universe. So some of us have been in the chosen place, so to say, because we are privileged enough to get this opportunity to work with mothers, fathers, souls to come, children, parents, everybody, all the health workers also. We are in the privileged position to be working in this space. Third, education begins before birth. It is not something which starts, at whatever stage, where you're trying to give kindergarten education, or before that trying to do things at home level. That is not the starting point of education. In fact, the most powerful period of life happens to be the what we call as the golden period in our terminology. The golden period for us is a period of about 1100 days, comprising of the 9 months of pregnancy, 2 years after birth, which is the period of infancy, and about 3 to 4 months before conception. So put together, this is the golden period of life, and the most powerful period of human life is these 1000 days. Education is most important in this period. If we miss out education now, you're losing a big chance. You're losing it out to. Otherwise, you might strive or struggle to do other 100 million things for your child. But when the child is in the most powerful place to take things, you're not even aware of it. You're not even conscious of it. Making it a process where education is a brilliant mechanism of engaging with the child through the course of the invitation process, the womb journey, the creation of the mind in the first 5 years, of which the first 2 years are in the pristine stage of the golden period, creating patterns, tendencies, etc. You create an asset for a lifetime. So learn that this is to be done. Now, the fourth thing which I would like to state is this looks like an uphill task, because most youngsters who want to have a baby are not in this frame at all. For them, they're not in the process of inviting a child. They are getting married at some point of time in their life, or finding a partner. And in many cases, in the West especially, you find Pregnancy is a chance event. Somebody just gets pregnant and has a baby. So this concept of wanting a child to come, because child represents continuity of universe. The way I came into the universe, I need to contribute to the continuity and the flow of the universe. That awareness is not there. Unless we bring that awareness, pregnancy will always be a physical act. It will never be an energetic act or a spiritual act. Whereas the essence of who is coming is a spiritual being. So if we don't understand that the spiritual being is coming into the midst of us in the human form, we will be losing out. So the spirit form has to transcend into the human form. This is a knowledge which has to come. Last but not the least, what I would like to mention, knowing all this in a very systematic, organized way is what is available from the scriptures of India. Knowing all of this in a blended way, where we have taken the knowledge of the East, the West, from modern science and put it together, is also available today from many of us from India, from outside. All of you doing good work, all of you will be focusing on this as well. For example, a few years ago, I would find it very difficult to talk of a spirit baby. There was no concept of spirit. And the fact that there is a reincarnation as a possibility was never accepted in the world of science. It's still not today. But today you have big government institutions working on reincarnation as a possibility. Not just as a possibility, they're doing active research. But because they cannot replicate it or repeat the knowledge, it's not come into the fold of science. But for example, in India, we have this big body called National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, NIMHANS it's called. There's a department which comprising of medical professionals, psychologists, others, about 100 of them if I know, who are working on cases of reincarnation, documenting it. They're not able to do anything beyond that. In the world of science, they present papers, etc. But beyond that, there's nothing. But this is a fact of life for us in India. So reincarnation is a reality. Reincarnation is the way energetic cycles go on. In fact, in India, we have this concept that life is a continuum. It's a cycle. We call it a life cycle, simply because life does not begin on date of birth and end with the date of death. This is life with a body, with emotions, and with a mind. But there's a larger me, not limited to the body, mind, and emotions. There is also the larger me who continues the journey from date of death to the date of rebirth or reincarnation, if you please. So it's a continuous cycle in which we are. This was again not, first of all, going from where the West was, it was very difficult in the initial days for people to even think of this as a possibility. But today, a lot of people still believe now that there is a spirit, and a spirit can come into the earth plane as a human being again, taking the course of life. This was a knowledge which was there. So to come back, that pristine knowledge with the modern perspective is also there. And the most important as a combination with this, what do I do with this knowledge? How do I engage? You have tools, you have techniques, you have knowledge imparting sessions, all of which are a part of the entirety of who we are as prenatal, perinatal professionals. We know this. This is a reality for every prenatal, perinatal medical professional who's there in the world. They know that this is the truth. But how do I actually make it happen? So, is there something which I can offer as a book? Yes. Is there a tool which I can offer to them? Whether, and typically, because the child is not in the body, mind, and emotions frame. The child is in what we call as a Vijnanamaya state or a superconscious state. How do I access that superconscious state? There are ways and means which our scriptures have given. It can be through sacred patterns, could be through sacred sounds, sacred sequences. Sacred patterns are called mandalas and yantras, the way you see behind me. Sacred sounds are called mantras and chants, and sacred frequencies are called chandas. which create patterns and connections. If you get this, you have access to that child in that pristine stage, even before physical conception, through conception, into pregnancy, and the impact of this is through the rest of life. Living proof, hundreds of them from our family, and I see it in the pre and perinatal world across the world. So, all of us put together, I think there is no way you can stop this knowledge from going further. And I said this in an APA conference a few years ago. Come what may, this is on an upward curve and it is going to go up and up and up. All of us are blessed. All of us are graced because we are now holding that knowledge and holding that power within us to engage with the rest of the world and contribute to the world in that sense. So the purpose of our lives is all for the rest of whatever number of years. God bless you for giving me another half a century, but whatever number of years I'm there, I'm going to be engaging in this field one way or the other.
I'm sure for that. And
Thank
thank
you
you
so
for
much.
doing that. Now, what is your uh, get getting to know all of this and bringing this to our discussion? What is the most fundamental message you would like to convey to uh, professionals who have made it their own life mission to support the health in whatever way, especially during the beginning of life, but also not necessarily to the birth, but also to then other phases of human life. What would you like to communicate to them?
Two things. One, understand yourself and the power which you carry. You're in a very powerful position. Every professional who's there in this field, whatever be the number of years of experience, whatever be the qualifications or academic credentials they carry, each one of us is a powerhouse because the universe is working through us. Whether I'm conscious of it, whether I know it, it doesn't matter. But I have been chosen, and therefore I'm in a very, very powerful position. Understand that. Second, have faith in yourself. Just have the faith that this is a process which is self revealing. The more you do, the more you will engage with it. The more you engage with it, the more you will learn. The more you learn, more the benefits spread to the child, children, babies, parents. The more you contribute that way, it is self fulfilling, it comes back to you. Be aware, live in that faith. So recognize the power which you carry, practice it with your faith. Rest of the things will keep happening. One paper will say this is right, another paper will say this is wrong, this is okay as a practice today, this is not okay as a practice day after tomorrow. We are the chosen people, so to say. We are privileged because we are finding our feet in the space and contributing to every parent, every incoming child, one way or the other. And they're all a network of energies. If I work with one baby, even if I'm not consciously working with 5 other babies, they're linked to this energy. So the moment I have this faith and understanding of the power which I bring to the table, huge amount of gratitude will flow for us. It's there. So don't get carried away by, so and so says this, or so and so says this, or I'm getting put down, or one event, no, this happened, and this kind of brought my spirits on. That's human. Be there, but recognize who you are beyond the human. You are in the larger sphere as well. You are a person playing in that space wherein you have no choice but to be more powerful than who you think you are. I am truly powerful. I am the universe. I'm not part of the universe. I am the universe. I can arrive at that. So the faith and the power. With power comes responsibility. Faith gives you the channel. Faith gives you the flow with which you can take it forward. All other things are okay, nice things. They'll keep happening in life because you're powerful not just as a human. You are human and you're more powerful because you're larger than just a human. And the faith which goes along with that is the one which is going to take the world into the future. Because otherwise, you look at it, Israel is going to bomb so, and the Arabs are going to retaliate, and the world is in a confusion, and dollars going to go like this, and chaos. Through all of this, have faith in yourself, become more and more self aware.
Thank you. And what is your message to that specific group of researchers who do their research work on the verge of, technology like artificial intelligence and ectogenesis and all of this genetic engineering, etc., etc. What is your message to them?
Again, it's a very, very nuanced message in the sense that if you think you are doing it, you're right. But that's only partly true. It's not the whole truth. If you recognize that I'm in a position in time and space and things are being done through me, things become very different. And this has been the story of the world. This has been the story of narrations for the world from the time the new science came about in the early 1900s or late 1800s. From then onwards, every scientist has just done what he needed to do, and they got the right revelations at the right time, and they brought it to the world. So this is a truth from modern science perspective as well. So every scientist, Einstein included, every one of them have worked themselves into a particular position where they have become the instruments for what needs to happen. So if they have become, let themselves be that, that's the whole truth. The partial truth is that I am the one who's doing it, and that's also part of being human. I love myself for being that. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't limit yourself to that. Understand that what needs to happen in every sphere of human endeavor, octogenesis, be it AI, be it the most modern of sciences, be it beyond epigenetics into the world of new genetics, creation of new life, every one of it, understand that you are an instrument in the larger sense, but I'm human living here. So I can't take the plea that, oh, that is going to do. No, no, no. You are there, you are sitting on that chair, you must do your job, and through you, things will be done.
Excellent. And to the parents, I mean, the young parents, the young adults who take, who consider becoming parents and opening up to parenthood, what is your message?
The way you came to life, you're going to bring somebody into life. What you were with all your limitations and what all your trials and tribulations, would you like to leave more for your child and bring better things to the child? As a parent, you would. Please work towards that. Know that education begins before birth, that what is arriving is a very powerful entity. Contribute to that process. Also, have your full load of fun as parents bringing up that child, inviting that child. If you do it with that knowledge and that awareness, you're doing justice to yourself, to your spouse, to your family, and of course, that child, the incoming child, the universe, society at large. You're making a huge contribution. So don't think of yourself as somebody who's just having a child. It's not just having a child. It's a huge momentous thing of bringing yourself through you into the contributory phase of the universe itself. You are a procreator. If there is a creator for the universe, You are a procreator. That is why in English also the term procreation is used. Don't use it as mere recreation. Yes, it is recreation, sex and fun and romance and all of that. But remember that there's a procreation which is going to happen. And that is the message you need to be aware of and work with for the betterment of yourself, your family, and the society as a whole.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to add to this, which I have missed asking or bring our attention to it?
Uh, I'm really grateful to you for having thought of speaking to me and bringing my work onto your records. I'll be very happy to contribute to this process in any which way. Uh, at this point of time, if anybody, if you included, would like to know more about the kind of work which we have, etc., I'll be happy to share our contacts with you. And let's continue our engagement and be connected at all points of time.
Thank you very much.
May God bless us. May Devima bless all of us. And I do wish you, your family, and the entirety of people you work with, engage with, all the very best in the course of their lives. And I'll be very happy to engage with any of you at any time. We will continue the work together. Namaste.
Namaste.